Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining Pac-West webinar, What Mask Does Your Technology Wear? October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Did you know that? Well, we are really happy and very honored to have Jeff White with WTC IT Services here to present and guide us how to protect ourselves from cybersecurity scams. I'm Joe Morris with the Faster Training Institute, and I'm honored to be here today as your moderator. I am also a proud member of the Pac-West Board of Directors, and I would like to say a very special thank you to all of our sponsors. They make events like this happen for us. Our platinum sponsors are ND Industries, Star Stainless Screw, and our gold partner is Bright and Best International. And silver partners are Cambridge Corporation, WCL Company, and WTC IT Services. All right, before we get started, I'm going to run through some general tips to help you guys maneuver through the webinar today. First, because there's so many of you joining us today, the size of the group, all attendees are muted. If you'd like to ask a question, please type it into your question box of your control panel and just click submit. And we do want you to ask questions. This is supposed to be a very interactive webinar. To keep us on schedule, we are going to keep questions until the very end of the presentation, and I'm going to read them to Jeff for him to answer. Jeff is going to use his webcam a little bit, but this is a PowerPoint presentation. When he shows his webcam, you guys can control the size of it. If you'd like to make it bigger, smaller, just use your camera drop-down menu and select which view that you prefer. So that's all I've got. This is a great topic, a lot to cover. So I am happy to introduce to you our presenter, Jeff White from WTC IT Services.
Thank you very much. Good morning or afternoon, depending on where some of you are. And thank you, Pac-West, for asking us to do it and letting us do it. My name is Jeff White, as she said. I am Vice President of Sales and Marketing for WTC and also a proud member of Pac-West. I want to thank the whole fastener industry for everything we've been able to accomplish and just for being there. It's really been hard not to see everybody and not be at the trade shows and all that kind of stuff. So really miss that in-person stuff. All right. Before the pandemic, cybersecurity was important, of course, but we're going to focus on what has happened and what is changing as our workforce goes to home and works from home. The next generation of our workforce, if you want to call them the millennials or what, they work rapidly, anywhere, multiple devices, anytime. And that's why you see the title here, Run Anywhere, Run Anytime. And our objective is to protect everything. There will be times for questions, as she said at the end, and I'm not going to talk about specific tools we use just because we're going to keep this not as a marketing strategy for WTC, but as a gift to Pac-West and the ability to share our knowledge and hope that you get some information out of this to better secure yourselves. The level of technology in Pac-West varies a lot. So one location has a small business owner with a smaller warehouse, and then you have a multi-state, multi-location, larger business. The IT that they run and that they operate is going to be completely different. So I'm going to try to give this webinar in a sense that covers all areas, small and big. But the thing to be knowledgeable about right now is that we can't say that, oh, I'm small, I ain't got to worry about that. The new threats that are happening right now are creeping down into the smaller businesses, the individuals. It's happening across all platforms. So Pac-West business owners, cover a lot of platforms, and so the MSPs that support them, their IT departments, their directors, companies like us, we have a hard job ahead of us as the pandemic offers new ways to threaten everything we're doing. I'm going to go through some statistics first, and what's very important in all of this is that the recent attacks on the right hand side that you see are now going from beyond government into all other areas of business. It used to be that government centers were the biggest things to be attacked, and it's just not the same thing anymore. On the left, you see some raw data. WTC did a webinar in 2018 on just ransomware, and it gave some staggering numbers at that time, but it also had some implications of what would happen in 2020, and we're seeing that a lot of that stuff comes true. Every 11 seconds, lasting an average of over 16 days, ransomware is attacking Pac-West members, other people in this country. We're going to focus a lot on ransomware because it's now 85% of all attacks. So small business has become an increasing target, as I had said. They have a more relaxed cybersecurity system in a lot of them. Attacking 5 small businesses for a $10,000 ransom is a lot easier than one large for a $50,000 ransom. So that's why you're seeing a lot of shift. The correlation between the government getting the basis or getting the most hits and into other industries now is, think about the DMV or paying a court fine. All of the connections are on the outside. So we connect into those. That's what's happening within our businesses now. As employees are going home, we have more connections, which is more threats, and it's getting us just as vulnerable as they were. There was 2 types of ransomware attacks that are worth mentioning. The first one hijacks information and threatens to sell it. And the second one just basically shuts down your ability to even operate. And you have to pay the ransom to come back up, and they'll give you a code. It's interesting to look at the trend in companies that paid it or didn't pay it. Companies that are shut down and can't operate usually opted to pay it, because 16 days of no sales, no business, not operating is a huge hit. Companies where their information was stolen and threatened to sell or use on the dark web, they didn't pay. And the people who are most affected by that is those people whose information was stolen and sold. Right there, the Michigan State in May of 2020 didn't pay. And the result of that was 2,600 customers of their student store had all their information, banking and personal, sold over a 9-month period. And so it's kind of a different way of looking at things. And what's happening with the fastener industry and with us is we have a different kind of attack. We go down completely. It affects us, our employees, our vendors. It affects every sector of the business. And so manufacturing, construction, and the type of business that we do is now under attack. And more importantly, we need to look at it. Working from home, WFH. It's time, like it or not. The employee factor is one of the major problems with everything going on within the cybersecurity phenomenon during this pandemic. There are many advantages to people working at home, and some employees are happier and production is up, and that could actually present a post-pandemic new norm where we continue to operate in this fashion and employees stay at home. First thing to point out is something I read the other day. There's a new phenomenon where the recycle bins at people's homes are being they're being cleaned out, and because employees are usually near a shredder or they don't take out their own trash, they don't think about it while they're at home, and so very important documents, people's personal information is being thrown into home recycle bins. This is worth mentioning just as part of your training procedures with your staff, that anything they print out or anything mailed to them, faxed to them, is needs to be handled like we do any cybersecurity. phone use, employees using their own personal devices or home phone services is changing the ways we also do business, because we're not there to hear them answer. We don't know what their voicemail is like. We don't know any of that. But the device itself is now another entry point, because they're answering their email, they're working from their phones, and so we have yet another entry point. It's very, very scary in devices carried from home to office and back. And then I said to a child's dance class, because my daughter takes dance, and or she takes yeah, she does dance, and I sit in there and I get on the public Wi-Fi that they offer, and I shoot emails. I work from there, and these are many different Wi-Fi connections that are private and public that are now connected to our businesses, and it's a different era of threats going on. How to keep your IT safe from employees. We're going to keep hitting on this employee thing, because employees are where most of this is happening. Employees are very susceptible to making malicious and malware, malicious links and the malware and their emails, and making all that stuff happen, because they're not trained, and the setups at home aren't the same at work. So new things are popping up that they're not used to. Follow up and test their training practices after you train them. And then we have to talk about the BYOD, bring your own device policies. Audits by your IT team is something to do. And then strong password hygiene and multi-authentication passwords we also recommend. We'll get more into this in depth as we move on, but this is just kind of a summary of some of the things the employees need to do. From the device, using their own cell phones, providing VoIP services is something that is very beneficial, and it also makes it so they don't make you try to pay their bill. It's kind of a good thing. It's pretty regular these days. A lot of people keep an email account and a personal email account. And so if they're using their device from home and it's connected to, say, their 365 account run by your business, but it's also Gmail's coming in, that's another added threat to your business. Clicking on one of those fake links, or you owe the IRS. That's how ransomware gets in. That's how viruses get in, and it impersonates original information, and it's a disaster waiting to happen. Devices moving from place to place, is using other connections. All this stuff is something that is adding threat to our businesses. IoT devices, Internet of Things, is kind of a newer threat. These are ran independently of human touch. So things that are connected to the internet and Wi-Fi within our homes, like baby monitors, smart fridges, smart home products, cameras, thermostats, they are getting driven by, people drive by, and they are able to get into these and then use them as a source to your modem. And the way these are secured is based on the manufacturer, and they're coming with stuff that isn't necessarily good for anything, because you can't change it, and making the companies protect you is a matter of the government getting involved. So it's an iffy situation. Powering down an office is something that is very, very important. Make sure that your devices are powered down. Make your employees power them down. It's just something that is a good practice. All right, the work from home infrastructure. So before the employees came or went home, you had an internet connection into your company, and you had practices within that safeguarding your company. But now the new threat has begun, as your employee's internet connection is being used. The employee's home there on the left, there's so many devices, the kids' tablets and the light bulbs and the refrigerators and all these things are susceptible to attack that's now coming through the internet. Firewalls in the business are important for that. And the move in this area is to treat the home like it's just another location. It's another branch of your business, and you need to secure it in the same way. It's very, very crucial to conduct timely audits to ensure that passwords match up and that safety standards are used within the password policies, and there's no password sharing. And then the last category, to clearly state, again, the employee working from home is the biggest threat in itself. All right, so just a more generalized basis to see here. We have devices that are connected to the internet outside the business, and there are devices connected to the internet inside our business, which is our current infrastructure in most of our businesses. The new connection points are home to business and home to cloud. So from home to business, home to cloud. And then you have this third unknown, which is using a phone to connect to your business, or being at your neighbor's house because you guys are going to work together and you have no idea what kind of security they got there. These are new threats coming in. The cloud is a whole nother scary thing, because if you're going straight from the employee's home to the cloud, your company's infrastructure isn't involved at all unless you have locked down that employee's house. So these are very, very important topics to cover with your IT teams and your security people. Is how have you locked down employee connections to both the business and the cloud, and how many devices are they allowed to use? Are they allowed to use their phones with work? Do they have their emails on their phones or on all their tablets? Controlling devices and connections is the thing that we really need to work on to make sure we are safe. All right. Okay, these are some facts that we just need to get in our heads because it's real. And before you move into a proactive mode and change things that you're going to go about, at least that's the hope, if you don't change things, the bottom of the line is there's going to be more Pac-West members being affected by malicious attacks. Ransomware, like I said, 85% is ransomware, and it demands a large amount of money. It's very, very expensive to the business and operating costs. And as employees working off-site, we are more vulnerable to these cyber attacks. More connections are created, so there's more variations of the attacks. Statistics exponentially increasing means the number of attacks are increasing over and over and over again. It doesn't seem to be a place where we peak and then fall. They just keep, 5 goes to 10, 10 goes to 20, 20 goes to 40. Based on this industry, large or small companies, the chance a Pac-West member will experience an attack is at the highest probability ever. I've read a lot of statistics over the course of researching for this. Some say that your company's 25%, is kind of the threat. Some say that 65% of all business are going to get attacked. But the number of attacks is rising, and the number of attacks within this industry is rising. A large number of fastener industry companies have been attacked, a lot of them more than once, and some Pac-West members have been attacked by ransomware. More will be attacked in the future. To sum up the different areas that we can be proactive about changing, I just put these out here because when we get into question and discussion, we can get into the actual specific ways to do this. Again, this isn't a marketing strategy, so I'm not going to say what software, what hardware. We can get into one-on-one conversations. We're open always to Pac-West members to talk about everything that we do. Employees, train and train and train again. Have roundtables, form Zoom meetings, test and evaluate, and build strong SOPs. Firewalls, invest in an enterprise-type firewall where you can control the access, monitor the traffic, and block access. Devices, most of this stuff goes for everything that's on-site or off-site. Devices, we need to audit all devices. So if you're going to allow employees to use their own devices, we suggest that you have them bring them in and let your IT team or your MSP audit those devices and test them and make sure that they're up to date, make sure there's no threats just due to user error. Again, on the devices, train, review, and test the employees. And then if you're going to provide the strongest way to do this safely is to actually provide the hardware for your employees and block admin rights. Don't allow certain things to be ran on there, and really control the passwords, control every way you're able to make sure that everything's up to date, and it just runs a lot safer for your company. Updates and patches are a must, and one thing that we regularly see that's missed is all devices having the patches. Servers regularly get ignored because it's just a big hunk of iron in the corner, and if you don't have a proficient IT team that is updating and taking care of that server, often it does not get taken care of. So it's not just your PCs on your desk that you got to update Windows and update your operating system. Make sure your servers are getting done. Update your licenses. Many times we have seen where the virus protection has just shut off because licenses were not updated, and so you got to keep these things organized, know when the license ends and when you need to get it back going and stay working. Update smart hardware to smart hardware, smart switches. Everything's smart these days, and using smart hardware has security built in. And if you use the same brand, we like Cisco Meraki, we like Cisco switches. They are all built to work together. Update your peripheral hardware, printers, fax machines, access points, anything that's in the peripheral. Update them. Make sure that if they have a Wi-Fi connection, that's secure. Make sure that you're doing everything you can to keep all the equipment, all the hardware, and the software that runs it up to date with all the latest virus protection loaded up into it. The home internet connection is something that you have to gauge what kind of reinvestment you want to put into it. If you leave your employees as is, so if you give them the right to work from home and they're just going to take their device home and begin to work, that's where your threats are the highest. So if you're going to provide the hardware, maybe even a firewall from their house, and have complete control of their hardware, that is where you have the biggest amount of control and safety against threats. Good password hygiene, Wi-Fi name not broadcasted is something really important to do that many don't know you can do. You can call your internet provider and just ask them to get into your Wi-Fi and not broadcast the name. And then train employees on best practices on passwords and all that stuff. Good password hygiene is no common names. You don't use your youngest's first name with their birth date or the street you live on, followed by your phone number. Use letters, lowercase and uppercase, numbers and symbols. Use multi-factor authentication, and then now you have stuff like from Google, you have third-party authentication, which is some of what we use for some of our stuff, and it's some of the strongest stuff out there. Strong antivirus program, of course, is clutch, but none of it matters if you don't keep it updated and you don't keep proper control of every system that needs it. It only takes one point of entry to get ransomware or an unwanted threat into the infrastructure of your business. The attacks that are happening are coming in, for the most part, still through malicious email or phishing email. And it's one of those things where, you owe the IRS this, or you have a refund check waiting, and they click it. And as they're reading it, The malware is now entering into that person's piece of hardware, whatever they're using. It goes up the ladder through internet, into modems, across to the company, and then they fish around, and it goes from system to system until they have control of all of it, and they can just shut everything completely down. And so it's super important to know that all these things, these topics, are the best way to guard yourself against pandemic threats. Social distancing, does that work or not? You know, wear a mask, don't wear a mask, lock down or open, vaccine or herd immunity. That's kind of where we came up with what we called this, because it's kind of the same thing. And as human beings, we have to take new precautions of our personal health. And in our businesses, you know, we're forced to take new precautions with our digital health and our technological health. So we'll open up for questions and discussion. If there's anything outside of this coming, you know, that's more specific to your company, you want to get in a more in-depth conversation, we're always open to Pac-West members to help your teams, your MSPs, anything that we can help with.
Thank you, Jeff. That's a lot of information, and we do have a bunch of questions coming in. I'm going to attack these as they come in. First one, what are our compliance obligations?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
What are our compliance obligations as a small business owner? When we're saying compliance, or what are we talking about? I'm sorry. Well, maybe is there a compliance requirements that they have to have certain safety protocols in place for their customers?
Oh yes. Oh yes, of course. Anything coming over the internet, over these different connections with private employee information, credit cards, anything like that, yeah, you have to have safeguards against that. And so in this way of operating from homes, that's why we kind of stated that you got to treat every person's home like that's an additional branch. And the same safeguards have to be available to safeguard your vendors, your customers, and anybody else who's connected.
Got it. Thank you. The next question is do we need cybersecurity insurance? And if so, how do we gauge how much?
Just so you guys know, my father, Tom White, has come in. He's been in the fast food industry forever and can talk Father a lot Tom, better than I can. Father Tom is here.
Educate us on cybersecurity insurance. Personally, I didn't even know that was a thing, but.
Yes, so to answer that, there are two kinds of insurances, and many of you are probably well aware of this. Number one insurance that you should have is to be able to recover yourself. So you need to ascertain for yourself approximately what would that cost you. Are you going to cover the payment to recover your data, and are you going to cover the payment for the IT people to work on it? And what is that size? That size is interesting. As Jeff said, the average is $84,000 in cost, but for the Pac-West people, some of you might have experienced even higher costs. But I know that it's anywhere from $15,000 to $40,000 for an IT company to recover your data if you don't have the backups that necessary in place. It takes time to get that data back, get you back up and running. The second insurance is the insurance you need for being sued. And the suit comes from missing the compliances. The state of California has specific compliances that have not been forced down on us yet as fastener companies. But the reality is that it's coming. And therefore, we can wind up in court by a consortium of, let's say, customers or vendors, but more customers that we've given away their data. So it's very, very important for us to be PCI compliant, work with companies that keep the data for us so that it cannot be gotten to. But that insurance is a very important piece of insurance. And Again, it depends on what is done with the data when it's stolen. But I don't have a factor for that. Your insurance agent would have a better factor for that compliance. What he would recommend, just for you to know, for every occurrence, WTC carries $2 million. So we can, each customer of ours essentially could come after us, and we carry $2 million per incident. But that's because we would look like deep pockets to people. So we're very protective, and it's not cheap. But hopefully that answers the question. Re-ask it if I didn't cover it clear enough. So there's two kinds. One's to recover your business. The other is to protect your business.
Thank you. And I'm going to pop back to that first question that came in regarding compliance obligations. So is that a mandate that you said it's coming for California? That might be what they were referring to. Is it just California? Are there any other states that require that companies comply with safety and security?
For the fastener industry, it's unfair for me to say, but there are standard compliances for businesses. And so therefore California has standard compliances. There are out-of-state compliances when you operate out of state and you take a credit card. So if you've got a website or if you've got offices in other states, you've got to know what those compliances are too. So therefore, it's always best to operate with a compliance company that protects you in the area of, let's say, credit cards. Then customer information, name and address, things like that, that's all available on the web. And you don't have to worry about that as much. It's that unique information that you carry, which is going to be Social Security numbers and credit card numbers. And you keep those out of your systems, keep them on paper, and all, you're pretty well protected. But those compliances are coming down hard. This whole idea, especially in California, of an individual's rights are really coming to play, and therefore people can sue. I'll give you a quick story. A young lady was in a insurance involvement in a college, and she had insurance through the college to an insurance company. The insurance company's website was hacked, and all of her personal data was taken out of that website. And then she went immediately to the school to find out what happened, and then went to, this is just recent this year, and then went to the state, and then wound up with a lawyer, and then they had to settle out of court. And it wasn't fun. And it was just her personal information. It wasn't a Social Security number. It was her personal information. So again, it's a nasty compliance. It's a shame. So we need to protect that for ourselves and have insurance.
Absolutely. All right, thank you. The next question, can we detect an attempted or successful cybersecurity incident?
Yes, there are wonderful tools, both hardware and software available. For example, one of the tools that we love using allows us to get a ticket into our system, if you will, when any cyber attack is tried. So all of the tries, and the tries are interesting. For example, you have a router out there, a firewall that's protecting your business, and it's getting hit all day long because it has an outside IP address, and it's coming in. And they're trying to break through on the different ways that they know to do that. If you have a smart device, it records all of that, and you can know that. Your IT company can say, yes, we got hit 50 times yesterday or 1,000 times yesterday. Once you get hit, your rate of going up is phenomenal. Here's why. Your break-in is now sold on the web, the black web, to other people. So that now everybody is going after you because somebody did break in. Even if you didn't pay the ransom, they've got you. And so now they're going to come after you. So the answer is you should have it, and yes, there are tools that do that.
To add to that question, our engineers for the first time have actually seen ransomware blocked, quarantined, and reported, which is significant because ransomware is this mystery that you don't see, and so we've actually seen it in our reports that it got blocked.
Okay.
Well, maybe let me share one more thing. What's important about that blockage is this: ransomware does come in. It then will hit a server, let's say, and it takes on your virus protection, and they go to war. Think of it as two saddled knights fighting each other, the Black Knight and the White Knight. Both of them can get injured, and both of them can die. So your ransomware didn't report that happened, or from that the server keeps running because the ransomware didn't get through. But your analysis, the data that you need, is sitting there, and it should be reported on. So one, you go clear that ransomware off. You then revive the poor knight, put him into the hospital and bring a new knight on. Just a recopy of your devices. We didn't recognize that was going on until that finally got reported. And we said, wait a minute, you mean ransomware is still alive or sitting on the server? And even though we thought it should be quarantined, no, it just got in a fight and lost the fight, but so did our knight. And so you need to be looking at that data on at least a weekly basis, but I like the idea that you get an email or a ticket that says, you were attacked.
Wow, it's evolving. I mean, there's something new something more you have to look at. It's crazy. This next question seems a little broad. I'm going to ask it, and you can attack it any way you want. What do we do in case of emergency? Shut down, cry, call you. All
did you say what do you?
Go
did
drink.
You say what do you do? What do you do in case of an emergency?
Yes.
So are you talking about like systems down? You're being attacked?
Well, it's not. I would assume that the question was typed in. So let's pretend you are being attacked. That I would consider that an emergency. What do you do?
Depending on how your IT is implemented and by who within your company, whether you have on-site IT personnel or an IT director or an off-site MSP or none at all, hopefully you got someone to call. For us, we escalate it because there are professionals in the field that is all they work on. And these guys are $5,000 an hour. I mean, yeah, these guys can be an outrageous amount of money. But having a strong IT department or IT or MSP behind you should have that information. That's who you would call.
Right. I think that a lot of Pac-West members, though, are small business owners. I don't know how robust their IT department is.
Well, then consider it this way. Let's take away from this meeting that people working from home are a greater risk than we ever have because they're not our networks. They're not sitting in our offices anymore. That's item one. Item two, take away from this that you get into a situation and it happens to you. What backup solution did you put in place, and what was your recovery time that you agreed to? Because if you have a solution, you're okay. Yeah. You have a procedure in-house that says, when this happens, call this phone number, and they said that they'll have me back up in 4 hours, 8 hours, 1 day. And that's what I signed up for because I can be down 1 day or I can be down 4 hours. And that's what you put in place. You talk about insurance. Well, data insurance is very important. Put that in place, and then you won't have to ask us that question. You know exactly what's going to happen when there's an emergency.
So that is excellent advice. Have a plan, and nobody is too small. Assume it can happen to you.
Exactly.
All right. Next question.
And again, we offer Pac-West members advice. We're part of this organization just as another team member, and we're not always just trying to get our company's products out there, and we're not trying to sell. We're here for advice. So we'll lead you in the right direction. And if we become partners, that's great. But please don't hesitate to call or email with these questions.
That's very nice. Thank you. Okay, the next question is, if my personal computer is hacked, are my smartphone and or tablet at risk too, since they are all connected?
So, did you want to take it?
All I was going to say about that is that it depends on the type of attack. If it's a phishing email, then yes. If all devices are within the same network, i.e. they're using the same Wi-Fi, then yes. It's all about connections. So if you have a PC at work, and that, let's say you're using Gmail, and that attack came through your PC at home using Gmail, that doesn't necessarily mean that your PC at work is also infected. And phones have awesome defense on them. I mean, phones are better defense than PCs because they update constantly. They're attacked in a different way because their operating systems are different, and there's nothing to get out of them but information. So shutting them down is not what they target. But yes, depending on the connection with all those devices, let's say you're at home and your tablet, your smartphone, and your laptop are all related, connected to the same Wi-Fi, then they're all vulnerable.
That's nuts. All right, you mentioned phishing email. How do I know if I've gotten a phishing email?
Well, hopefully you don't. And you know, a good email program like Office 365 or Email 365 has blocked it, and you don't see it. One thing we tell people is do not go into your spam folder and start opening them. There's a lot of spam folders that aren't on auto delete, and for whatever reason, you know, people will go in there. And there are some things, you know, that even companies that email you, say a contract or something, you know, I've gotten, well, will you check your spam folder? And oh yeah, there it is. And what that means is that they're sending you vulnerable email. So the way you know you have it is either a lot of, like when you're using 365, it'll tell you, like this, you guys might have seen this in your personal email, and it'll say, do not open this email, there's a threat. If you've got that type of email program working on your system, it'll let you know. You'll have a pop-up box that'll ask you if you want to accept it or not, and it'll tell you that it's warning you not to. Another way to know that you hit a phishing email is your computer breaks. You know, that's the worst kind.
So the other thing that we may mention is that remember, all the information about you as a person is known. And if you don't believe that, go out to Amazon or any of these locations and order something in and watch out all the other things that come up. And then from then on in, as you're on different websites, you'll see these little offers that come up. They really understand your profile, and you've been profiled. So what happens is then in your email, you're going to wind up getting emails sent to you vis-a-vis profiles. They may try to sell you something, but on the same opportunities, they may try to add something to that. Lastly, when you go out to sites that are entertainment sites, once you do that, streaming, whatever it is, you could receive then an email from being on that site. You go, oh, wow, I was just there, and you think that makes sense. And what that was is somebody picked that information up in a profile and then sends you a ransomware. So what you should do is look at what your common email looks like every day to you and say, you know, 80–90% of the time, this is my email. These 10%ers or 20%ers, just don't open them.
Okay.
And then you're way safer.
Yep. And I hate getting those emails when you've been on someone's site, and it's so big brothery. The next question, you've answered it a little bit. How do I know if my firewall and antivirus are working, and is there a good home network antivirus software that you would recommend?
Well, one way to know is that nothing's attacked you. You know, your firewall, depending on how big you go. Like I said in the webinar, you know, update to an enterprise piece of hardware. The Cisco Meraki is what we recommend, and we discussed. You see in all the reporting that you get that it's working. You see everything that's blocked. You get to control what is available. If you don't want any of your employees going on Netflix, you can stop it. If you don't want anybody to go on Google, on Amazon, you can turn off and control the settings and what people are able to to access from the internet. So you know these things are working within the reporting of the piece of hardware because it tells you what it's blocking and why. One thing to check and it's something to Google. Top 5 at-home firewalls. There's some great pieces of hardware out there that are relatively inexpensive. The problem with at-home firewalls and managing them is you got to manage them. You got to update them. You got to know how to use them. It's not plug and play. And that's a misconception with a lot of hardware is, oh, I got a brand new PC. The virus security is perfect. I mean, my personal computer is brand new. There's updates happening to it every other day. And those patches, which are called patches that update your BIOS and your virus threats and all that, that's how you know things are working because your equipment is operating at optimal level as if you just bought it. And when things start getting sluggish and things are slowing down and maybe you can't open certain windows, that's the time to stop and do an audit of your device and see what's going on.
Can you set up automatic updates?
You can. The problem with automatic updates is that they need to happen during non-busy times because they have to constantly restart. And some updates won't happen until another one has happened and restarts. And so the update hours are often blocked. And if you have, let's say you have your update out, your regular working hours by the PC actually estimates it and will tell you, you're usually online 8 to 5. We're going to do automatic updates from 6 to 8. Well, now your IT department's telling you when you're not working, turn that thing off. We don't want people getting in on it. And so it's passing over the update time. And then the restart is another big thing. Often that for that update to take place, the restart has to happen, and it's in a side window or it's in your notification windows, and you just don't see it. And so while you think auto updates are happening, they aren't always. My personal computer is on auto update. Once a week, I check it manually, and it always has updates. And there's also things to consider beyond just a basic update from the computer itself. I have a Dell. I have a Dell update I have to do. I run Windows. I have the Windows update I have to do. I have my virus protection. I got to update that. And then I have all the apps and all the things that run within that computer that also update. So you gotta, the main ones though are your virus, your email, your actual product, who the manufacturer of that product is, and then your operating system.
That's amazing. I bet a lot of people on this call had no idea that they had to personally go in and update. I think that's a lot like your shredder example, that you just assume things are happening working from home and you're not maintaining it and you're not getting the full protection that you need. So that is really good advice. Next question. I'm reading this slowly. And my apologies if I misstate any of this. If malware bytes logs 3 blocked malicious IPs daily, is it a ticking time bomb before a malicious site slips through?
That's a yes and a no. That means that 3 were blocked, so that's a good thing. If you have something to compare that to, let's say your coworker next to you has a newer device and he's blocking 10 of them a day. That's something to maybe judge that by. One thing, again, if those blockages stop, so if it's blocking 3 a day and all of a sudden it's not blocking any, you might be that's when you should be a little bit worried, because the blockages mean that they were blocked, and that report is showing you that they were blocked. And if you don't update that, as these things turn and change and turn into new monsters, those updates to protect against those new monsters aren't there. And so blocking stops. So I'd be more worried about nothing being blocked than something being blocked.
Okay, again, the key is updates to protect yourself.
Yeah, the one other thing though that you might consider is when it says it's blocking something, it tells you what it's blocking. You might look at that and ask yourself, are all three of them from the same place, from the same address, or multiple names but same location, if you will? So John, Jane, and Sam from the same company or same download. And then say, block that all together. I don't want to see that no more. And you can tell that to your security on your PC or your laptop, so that won't even come into your environment for yourself. And so it's very important to consider what is it that it's blocking, because it may be just the right kinds of things and it's blocking properly, and that's great because of the way you tied down your security. Because you can have tightly secured environment, you can have loosely secured. And if it's tightly secured, then these are all the things that should be done. I just want to make a point to this. This is why a businessman should think about it really hard if he's going to allow employees to work at home. And say to himself, do I want to supply a PC or laptop that's connected to my environment through their modem at home, but I place all the security for that machine? And I don't allow their personal machines to get on the network to me, vis-a-vis, let's say, a lockdown VPN. That's a virtual private network. So that's why, as you go through these questions and you think about this, as a business owner, do I want to go through all of this and the kids playing their games, or do I want to just invest in the PC because they're going to work from home and then lock that PC down and own it? So those are kinds of business questions one might want to ask.
Okay, that's excellent. I know we're running out of time. Do you mind if I ask you one more question?
No, please go ahead.
In the event of a ransomware event, in an ideal situation, how fast should your MSP be able to recover your data?
Recover. Well, there's two different things. If that question is pertaining to your company is now not operating and you're not going to pay the ransom and they need to bring you back operating, or is there a total loss of operations and you're now going to bring your backup to bring them fully operational again? So I think that it varies from the type of ransomware. As I said, actually worldwide, the average downtime is 16 days right now. I don't know if there's a statistic that would say your MSP is a good one or not if they brought you up in this amount of time.
Yeah, I wouldn't measure it that way. My consideration for you would be this. Go ahead and say to yourself, how long can I afford to be down? And then turn to your MSP and say, what does it cost for me to only be down 2, 4 hours, 8 hours one day? Let them come up with the solution and what that cost is. Then you can make the right kind of decision, because you can recover instantly. You do not have to be down. They can hit your system, your production system, and you can come up on a environment that's an absolute raw duplicate of yours that's fully protected, and you can come up right away. You can fail over. What's right away? 1 to 2 hours. So you really have to ask the question, what can you afford to be down, and therefore what's it cost to be protected at that level?
Okay, yep, work backwards.
Yes.
Gentlemen, anything else before I have some closing statements? No, you guys, that was so interesting. I want to thank you both so much. And thank you everybody who joined us today. Before you leave, sit tight. I want to remind everybody, the Pac-West Fall Joint Conference with the Southwestern Fastener Association and the Southeastern Fastener Association, Connecting at a Distance, is coming up, and early bird rates are good through today. There's going to be 4 days of speakers and panel discussions, along with some roundtable and some great networking opportunities. This is really a great opportunity to share the benefits of what Pac-West has to offer to your entire organization. So I really, truly encourage you guys to sign up, get your whole staff on. Also, FTI, Fastener Training Institute, is presenting a 2-day virtual class on November 17th and 18th. It's It's called Fastening 101, and it is a lot more than just the basics. It's for your whole team. If you're cross training, hiring somebody new, or you want to learn more about our wonderful industry, just attend the class. So thank you again to all of our sponsors who helped make this possible today. And thank you to everybody. Thank you to WTC IT Services. Please, everyone, stay safe, healthy, and have a great weekend. Thanks, guys.